Go ahead and mute me. Go ahead and mute me.
Oh, shit. Mute you? Where are you, Scott? Okay. I gotta make sure I'm muted. Oh, we're live. Shit. Now what are we gonna do? Anyway, this is about ABio. It's Damer and David Deamer, and we're going through a paper called The Hot Spring Hypothesis for an Origin of Life. It's from 2020. So mutable. The late immutable is not that late.
Late immutable. Fuck you. God.
Only 5 minutes. That's not bad.
That's the way I come in, and that's the way you treat me. I swear to God.
Oh, well. You know, we have our quarrels. Quarrels. I was going to see if I get a copyright strike on this. I have a hit song.
How? Open access paper.
Huh?
How?
No.
It's open access paper.
No, this. Oh, wow. No, I can't do that. Cannot do some things. Some things on the computer require.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you.
Enough of that shit.
Well, I'm thinking,
that's a copyright strike there, you son of a bitch.
You can just edit it out.
That's the kind of thing you do at the end, though.
Well, no, we're not going to overdub it, but it should be paper trails to you.
Oh, I got it. Okay, I did not make that connection.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain apparently isn't working in full.
Ain't as fucking young as you think it is it, Scott?
It ain't young, man. Must be some calcification going on in there.
Fucking old man just fucking ran circles around you, conceptually.
I know, man. Yeah, you haven't missed a step.
Nope, not yet. Okay, so hot spring hypothesis for an origin of life, and I believe you have section 1, and we probably how we want to handle this a little briefer. We're not going to read the entire paper; it's 20 pages or something.
Yes, it's a very, very extensive paper and worth the read. If anybody has already seen that crawl lecture, Assembling Life, that we've even shown clips of here, then they'll have been prepared for this particular paper. Yep. Because it's that video built on these ideas.
And I think the basic idea in the abstract here is that lipid encapsulated polymers can be synthesized by cycles of hydration and dehydration to form protocells. And that sums it up. But I'm going to let you figure out what you want to read and what you don't want to read, or is that too much pressure?
Well, we had discussed it earlier. So did you express a preference on what section you wanted immutable or anything like that?
I could probably go through section 3. I just have not read it yet. So that's
he's 3. So
okay.
Yeah, we're probably not going to get through any more than section 1 today, right?
Okay. Well then, I can start us off.
Yeah.
Sure. If I can look at it. But are we going to just skip the abstract since we're going to be reading through the whole thing?
Drawing on metaphors.
Okay, yes, let's I don't want to say foreskin there, but bootstrapping, computer operating, these are metaphors for those of you out there who tend to reify things. There's lots of word pictures being used to get a teaching point across. Do not go calling and when he talks about machinery down in the article, he doesn't think the cell is literally a machine. These are word pictures to help people understand the ideas he's trying to get across.
Scott, I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but it's going to be a freezing cold day in hell when we don't have to explain to creationists that some language is used metaphorically.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Or basically teaching them how to use language in general. I mean, they should know by now, but they apparently don't. Okay. What is?
Okay, I just thought of this, and you do have to wonder, like, if people that take the Bible literal, if that, since that was the first book they learned how to read, if that's why they treat all other texts as being literal.
Well, I was listening to James Tour today, and I listened to the whole video, and the sea slug is a little marine animal that has a brain, and it swims around, and then it finds a rock that it likes, and it plants itself on that rock for the rest of its life. And the first thing it does when it plants itself on that rock is it digests its own brain. And I thought, rock, Bible. You know how they put their hand on the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
That's them sucking up to the rock and attaching to the rock. And then from then on, they digest their brain. That's my theory. So,
all right. Well, you'll have to write a paper on it and
paper on that.
get some peer review.
Just a theory.
Just a theory. So Leslie Orgel, or Orgel, is how do you say that?
Orgel.
Orgel, kind of like Orwellian Nightmare, or no, that was Orwell.
To postulate one fortuitously catalyzed reaction, perhaps catalyzed by a metal ion, might be reasonable, but to postulate a suite of them is to appeal to magic. I think that's somebody that they like to quote mine. Anyway, okay, Scott, what do you got? What do you got?
What do I got? Well, I prepared for section 4 and 5.
Oh, you are? Nobody prepared for 1?
Huh. Yeah, I thought we had this all spot out, but
apparently you did, but we did not.
Yeah, apparently. Okay, well, that's fine. Okay, well, we'll just fight through this. Okay,
just read the dang thing.
Yeah, one of the authors knew Leslie Orgel quite well, and the clarity of his thinking has guided our research in many ways. It would be enjoyable exercise to debate the point Leslie made in the quote above. Sadly, this is not possible, but if it were, we would remind him of our conversations in which he proposed that using methods of combinatorial chemistry would be an efficient way for origins of life research to advance, to which we would heartily agree. However, we would also state that it is a way for self-assembled chemical systems to advance in a cyclic process toward the complexity required for life. And that's pretty important. Combinatorial, let's see. We are proposing a novel. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I've got a few highlights.
Sure.
We are proposing a novel hypothesis that life began through a combinatorial selection among vast numbers of microscopic test tubes, each containing a varying composition of potential reactants and products. Now, I was calling those microstates. I should call them microenvironments. So quadrillions of microenvironments turning over and over for hundreds of millions of years.
And the thing is with that too, I mean, is the best you can hope for with that kind of hypothesis is simulation, because, like he's saying, this effectively has become a game of numbers. You're dealing with, chemical reactions on the order of like quadrillions and quintillions at a time, and these are forming all sorts of wildly different chemical products that are then interacting in some chaotic type of fashion. So, at best, I mean, we can only grasp like a very infinitesimally small fraction of chemical diversity that's kind of occurring, between these different reactions and reaction landscapes.
Yep. I also highlighted driven solely by physical and chemical forces without the need to appeal to magic. And here we analyze one such scenario. So let's see. And where are we? Deamer. Are they twins? Deamer. Is it Damer or Dahmer?
Damer.
I'm saying Damer, but it could be Dahmer.
Yeah. Okay. So this is about bootstrapping, the bootstrapping of a chemical system, and that when you're thinking about abiogenesis, you have to think. and you have to imagine a little bit about how something might have happened, and bootstrapping is how it happened, how it had to happen. So the bootstrapping process. And let's see here. We then propose a roadmap. Okay, this kind of goes over the whole paper. The scenario is further advanced by grounding it in a prebiotically plausible geological landscape of subaerial hydrothermal fields associated with volcanic land masses. We review experimental testing of the hypothesis in the laboratory and in the field, and then integrate the evidence with computational models and geological conditions supporting the microbial populations that produce stromatolites, the oldest and most ubiquitous fossil evidence for life on Earth. We then propose a roadmap of avenues to test the hypothesis. Consider the implications of a hot spring origin versus the alternative oceanic hydrothermal vent scenario for the evolution of complex life on Earth. So they're contrasting the hydrothermal vent with the hot spring origin, basically, and conclude by offering some new insights to the questions of how life might arise on other worlds. Okay? Those, hang on a second.
Yeah, and the important thing is, like, at least to my knowledge, and somebody crucify me if I'm wrong, but the main difference between, like, a hot spring type of scenario and, this kind of hydrothermal vent scenario is really a difference in terms of like the depth of water you're dealing with, right? So deep sea hydrothermal vents are just exceptionally deep. Like, they can be hundreds of meters deep at times. It's just, you look into it and you're not going to see the bottom. But with something like this hot spring type of thing, it's a relatively shallow pond. Like, it's several meters. You can evaporate the full volume of the pond by exposing it to sufficient heat.
Some of them are like 3 or 4 inches of water. There's not that much. The one he went up to was pretty small. It was pretty tiny, and there's many of them.
Yeah, I believe at that time in our Earth's history, there was a lot of volcanic activity. So the surface area taken up to accommodate hot springs and the kind of geysers and flowing downhill because of gravity types of scenarios probably would be multiples of factors wider than what we have today, because they went to this place in Russia, a place in Greenland, a place in New Zealand, and I think they examined some ancient sites in Australia. But anyway, I'm sure, given what we've been told about the early Earth, the Hadean Earth, volcanoes were everywhere.
Yeah.
And hot springs were everywhere.
And meteor strikes, the Great Bombardment, and all of that. And the other thing is that the moon was a whole lot closer. And I haven't checked this, but I think it was Demeter that told us that the tides were of a nature that they would go all the way up to the Rockies and then wash back every day. So if something did happen in those hydrothermal vents, then all of that ocean water was also coming up and basically washing away and being evaporated into pools too. So, I mean, there you have another kind of little test tube that one must think about and scrutinize. So,
yeah, I think even Deamer and Dahmer mention tides, or the size of the tides, just in a blip, a blurb somewhere down in the paper as well.
Yeah, that was interesting. Would have been a hell of a place to live.
Yeah, I can understand why they would call it Hadean.
I don't know. California would have been a bitch. Okay, so open
already. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Or what's happening?
California's already a bitch. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, it has tides of wildfires now instead of tides, ocean tides.
Yeah, instead of baptism of water, it's a baptism by fire.
Yep. It's a new kind of world. And that's because, what was that? Because they didn't cut the underbrush, or is it because of J lasers? We'll call them J lasers.
Yeah.
So we get another strike, another little, QAnon. What did I say that word out loud? Fuck.
Come on.
I guess we'll just go through the paper for practice because it's going to be taken down.
No, they don't take it down. They just put that little wiki article.
Can you hear the FBI
Gotcha.
now?
Yeah, I get a lot of those. Okay, Oprah in 1962 asked whether life could in fact be understood as a mechanism. He even considered cybernetics, which is pertinent to the thought experiment we describe next. Oprah decided that the properties of life went far beyond mechanical explanations.
Boom! I'm sorry, did I do that? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so somebody go ahead and read what Oprah said while I
of course.
I'll read it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Of course, we say and should try to understand the physical and chemical basis of the various vital phenomena by means of the construction and study of models which will reproduce the same phenomenon, the phenomena as occur in organisms, but in a simplified form. In doing so, we must always remember that we are dealing with models and not confuse them with living things.
Okay.
That's an exceptionally powerful statement. In the sense that it's very true. Like, when you're dealing with a model of a system, even if it's a living system, the model you're constructing isn't representative of the whole system. It's representing the part that you're trying to study. And you need a lot more to say something about the nature of the whole system instead of just its parts.
I'm sending out an invite to Demeter.
He says he can't speak.
Oh, he can't? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can watch but cannot speak.
Okay, good enough. I'll skip it. Okay. Yeah, confusing our models with living things, and that's part of the stuff I've been hearing about pushback against population models like fitness and natural selection and all of that. Those are all models, and we model a piece of the puzzle, and you don't want to confuse that model with the reality, which is a whole lot of stuff interacting dynamically, feed forward and feedback systems that are very difficult to. I mean, we can never model even the simplest cell in a computer. I don't think we have a computer big enough.
Well, I mean, hypothetically, I don't see it as irrational to being able to compute and simulate that kind of system. But the amount of like computational complexity and processing power you would need to do that is just enormous.
Yeah, it is. I think it may be beyond what we currently have, unless we took over the entire Amazon, server farm. We may be able to model. Well, they run into that with the Blue Brain project. They took one subcortical column, which is, I think, about 10,000 neurons, and they managed to model that with some accuracy. And but that was just 1 out of 30,000 cortical columns.
I think you can do it using like quantum computing. Like once we start having more qubits being produced,
yeah,
those things can do like quadrillions of computations like per second. And that's far quicker than what our brain or any of our cells are able to do.
Okay, aptly comparing the functioning life to the processes of life to the functioning of a computer operating system. It was an interesting and perhaps enlightening exercise to compare in silico programs to the operating system of life rather than patterns of electrons flowing in silicon circuits. The programs of the cell are embedded in monomer sequences of biopolymers. Base sequences in DNA are linear data stores analogous to a read-only memory, which are transcribed into base sequences in messenger RNA. And that's kind of like the read-write memory. Then random access memory. Then loaded into ribosomes, which generate application programs fashioned out of proteins. Like an operating system's message queues and protocols A finely tuned chemical network of signaling and feedback enables the cell to execute specific protein programs in a highly regulated manner. So
Yeah,
somebody,
I think the important aspect to take away from that is it's not as if though the protein itself is well designed. The reason the protein works is because of the way it interacts with everything around the protein. Kind of this, the analogy of like the puddle in the hole, right? I mean, things in biochemistry work not because there's one part of a system that's completely able to handle all the function. No, things are acting in synchronicity with each other, and it has to be that a system is able to collaborate and kind of feed off of the rest of the momentum that's being generated by other parts of the system as well, in addition to itself being effective.
okay, so this comparison brings us to the question we are addressing here. Can a chemical computer emerge spontaneously? So we argue that the analogy to the development of computers, the hardware of the first forms of life, is represented by organic molecules that become self-organized into supramolecular structures capable of capturing free energy available in the environment and using it to drive polymerization and growth. So complexity generates new complexity. And let's see, the programs of life spontaneously developed when initially random systems of polymeric molecules underwent cycles of selection and amplification to express functions within the system of self-assembled hardware. And that's the part where we're going to get the most blowback from the creationists.
Yeah.
Claim this is absolutely impossible. Now, if anybody has a pencil and a paper and some Legos and understands a little bit about complexity, if you can't imagine how this could have happened, then get your fucking hand off the Bible. Get your head out of your ass and think a little bit. Was that too politicized?
We are trying to interview this guy at some point in time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
I don't think we want to come off as anti-Semitic.
Am I Semitic? Is that... Wait a minute. What? What does that have to do with anti-Semitic? Anti-creationist.
Look at that pretty diagram he has there of the computer. That's kind of what he's saying, is that a feedback system emerges at those levels.
Yeah. Game over. Program runs, play again. I have been trying to consider how I might model something like this, and I don't think it would be that hard. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like he'll describe in a few moments. I mean, you have something that generates a string. You have some process which determines efficiency of the string, and then you also have some means by which the efficiency by some means of efficiency or means by which selection can be carried out. Some criteria where you can discriminate the effectiveness of one string over the effectiveness of another.
Yeah. You need a filter. Program runs or, crashes, one or the other. So program's either going to crash or it runs, and then program produces something. But it shouldn't produce, it doesn't have to produce anything in particular, because we can't look ahead, because it isn't designed to produce anything, right? It just has to produce something that ends up producing more of something else.
Precisely.
More complex, a cycle, yeah. But it has no outcome. It has no direction. I mean, it can become more simple. It can become more complex. Might be a fun game to play. So,
well, I mean, it's acting under a completely, it's acting in complete randomness in a way, right? The types of things you're introducing to the system are random in terms of composition and order. The only thing that's determining whether or not if those strings survive is if it meets some criteria, being, like in this case, the particular hole in a particular section is recognized and it flashes the LED.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that might
Oh,
be
look, figure 1. It immediately says metaphor.
It's a metaphor, but I mean,
you see that, Otangelo?
It's a metaphor, but I mean, it serves to ground like the basic idea of kind of making a conceptual framework for how to view origin of life.
Right. Yeah.
Because you don't need to think about it in the same types of terms. What you need to think about is, the kinds of polymers that are being produced. Something in regards to their composition, be that their internal stability or their stability with respect to some environment, and also some rule for if those for how those things are going to be replicated or preserved in sequence as you keep iterating this process.
Yeah, there'd be like modular functions like if A and B, then make C. And
Right.
you take a bunch of those and put them together and then start feeding it random A's and B's. And you'd have to have a truth value on A and B. So I don't know how we do that. But anyway, it's worth a thought. Somebody else want to try to glean what's going on here, seeing as how we totally screwed up and never assigned anybody to part 1? Scott, I thought you were in charge, Scott.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Let's I'll do that. Demeter put a suggestion in there that we look at his point of no return paper and look at figure 1. So I was trying to pull that up.
Okay.
I'm just trying to remember. I guess it was paper number 2.
The third paper that he gave us, the new one, 2020.
I may not have that third paper.
Really?
Yeah, I think I have it. I think I can. If not, I can search it up. I think it's on MDPI. Let me check. Otangelo, where does all energy that life gets from the sun, in addition to volcanoes erupting, all sorts of other crap that the Earth was undergoing at that time?
I've got the paper up here. Apparently, I misnumbered them or something.
The old man beat you.
Oh, somebody already got me?
No, actually not. No, this is a different
here
one.
we go. I think it's on. Wait.
Oh, it has a new name now. Is it not called Point of No Return?
No, it is called Point of No Return.
Original law, the point of no return. Here, I'm going to share, and then, All right. I'm going to share my second screen.
Here, let me do it.
Oh, energy came from the sun, Otangelo.
Energy came from
the volcanoes.
Yeah, there's plenty of energy to go around here. I don't know. Where do you think the sun comes from now that it didn't come from earlier in the Earth's development?
And the heat in the Earth, there's plenty of energy. In fact, there was too much energy.
Well, not too much.
Being shared?
Hyperactive.
Okay, there we go. That's, in fact, I think I can make this bigger.
Plus,
that's his figure. That's his. I believe his version of what the computer diagram was wanting to show us. And somebody look in the chat and see if Demeter's making comments, because they will be valuable to see.
Yeah, he posted his own paper in the live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, does somebody have a PDF version of the final paper? I think I've got a draft.
Yeah, I mean, if you search the title of the paper, it gives you a PDF article.
Oh, okay. I have to get that. Let's see. Okay. Oh my God, Otangelo posted the same thing over and over.
We're going to ignore it. We're going to ignore it.
How are we going to ignore it? I want to point out that he posts a cake needs a recipe every time he comes here. Otangelo, get a new script.
As we pointed out, Otangelo doesn't listen to us when we went over that the cell is clearly not a machine, nor do I try to explain to him how chemistry actually works.
Sometimes, though, when you go to a club, the same club over and over again, you can't use the same jokes
or the same pickup lines.
The same pickup lines, right?
There's
Okay,
this thing
moving
called-
on.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. But that's a great day. And you did a video of a discussion between Demeter and Aaron Ra a few weeks ago. And Demeter, did I say it wrong?
Aaron
Ra. Okay. Aaron Ra. And so anyway, Demeter did a very detailed job of explaining this particular diagram. So that'll be very helpful for anybody who wants to go back and look at that.
Yep. Okay.
The sun would burn the molecules with UV radiation. Yes, it would, in fact, and that's part of what selection entails with that as well, is that some molecules would actually be what are called photosensitive and would decay under the presence of UV radiation. Some molecules, however, are less reactive to UV light, and so they won't react.
Okay, so however, if by chance a rare random program such as A in the example happens to light up at least one LED, is then automatically selected and fed back into the puncher. The puncher stores the program A and punches it out multiple times, adding new random instructions B, C, and D onto extended sections of tape. So, like I said, it's pretty easy to visualize how you could create something that would evolve. If you have, what you need is a selection filter, you need information, storage, and replication. You know, those things.
Well, and in this case, let's remember, right, that with the early Earth, and especially in the Hadean area, Hadean time, there's multiple filters that are occurring simultaneously. You have things like molecules that are prone to break down in water. You have molecules that are extremely photosensitive. You have molecules that are prone to complex with metals, molecules that are prone to react under dry conditions, cold conditions, all sorts of things.
Beautiful poem, Scott.
Thank you. My heart just leapt into that. And it reflects how I feel about cake versus pie.
Right.
I never said the cell is a machine. I said the cell is a factory. Okay, at that point, there's not really a difference. But
yeah, come on.
Okay, so basically, this just goes through the the basic ideas of how you could create a simple machine or program that would replicate. And of course, you have to create such a thing, right? It didn't create itself. But it's a metaphor. It shows you how it could have how bootstrapping happens, and bootstrapping can happen very easily. Okay. Using this metaphor of self-writing computer code, we have to emphasize metaphor of self-writing computer code allows us to reframe the origin of life as a testable hypothesis that incorporates the biophysics of self-assembly, the chemistry of polymerization, and the geophysical properties associated with volcanic land masses on the early Earth. So this is a metaphor. So you don't want to take it too seriously.
Well, no. You take it seriously because of the concepts it's trying to get across to you that aren't intuitively obvious. But yes, don't take it literally, but it is important.
Yep. Okay. Does anybody else want to try to glean content from
Sure.
This?
First, we must define an operating protocell, and that's a very big word, protocell, going into this. It's all over the place, and I have not looked into like the metabolism first theories in any detail, so I don't know if they incorporate that word protocell, but what he means there is a membrane, a amphiphilic membrane with like a lipid and then some compound that resists water. And and it encapsulates organic material that has been formed out of the combination of stardust that has made it down through the atmosphere, the remains of meteorites that have fallen to the Earth, which was very common, much more common than today, back during the Hadean Earth period, and so those membranes around organic material that are constantly dripping through these ponds fed by the hot water from geothermal reactions underneath the ground. That's what's the central idea here, is that things happened within the relatively confining and isolating laboratory of those membranous. I'm gonna have a hard time saying that, membranous vesicles. So anyway, we're gonna, I guess, say that a lot tonight, but that's what it is. The sole measure of operability of a microbial cell is that encapsulated systems of catalytic polymers use nutrients and energy to undergo growth by polymerization, supporting an eventual division into viable daughter cells, akin to the punched paper tapes. So he's reaching back to his LED computer system metaphor. The system we propose. Did you already read this, or did you just highlighted it?
I just highlighted it. I haven't
Okay,
read
the
it.
system we propose generates immense numbers of microscopic protocells, each different in composition from all the rest. And these protocell populations must then undergo a primitive version of Darwinian selection. We have termed combinatorial selection at the molecular and supramolecular level. Here is the set of questions we explore in this review. How can the earliest protocells composed of primitive self-assembled membranes encapsulate cargoes of random polymers? How can that happen? How can functional chemical programs spontaneously emerge by selection and begin to operate? What environmental stresses provide selective factors? And how can polymer programs be extended so that protocells can survive these factors and propagate sets of polymers into subsequent generations? Are there prebiotically plausible natural environments in which protocells can emerge and then undergo evolution through a primitive form of selection before the emergence of life? How can such populations of primitive protocells eventually evolve into the self-sustaining and self-reproducing forms that comprise living systems? Then he quotes Darwin here, the idea of his warm little pond. Is that what he called it?
Yeah.
He quotes
that's not the warm little pond quote, is it? I thought it was.
No, that's H.D. Hook or J.D.
Okay.
Hooker.
But, and oh, what a big if, we could conceive in some warm little pond with all sorts of ammonia and phosphoric salts, light, heat, electricity, and etc. present, that a protein compound was chemically formed, ready to undergo still more complex changes.
Yep.
Let's see. Most readers are probably familiar with this quote, but we reiterate it here because Darwin's intuition of a warm little pond makes perfect sense. In contrast to the dilution that inevitably would occur in a global salty ocean, potential organic reactants can accumulate and be concentrated sufficiently for reactions to occur in small bodies of fresh water on volcanic land masses emerging from the ocean. Darwin also proposed that a protein compound must first form, ready to undergo still more complex changes, although he did not know that proteins were linear chains composed of linked amino acids. Darwin intuitively understood that proteins were important and that they could somehow be synthesized by an unspecified source of energy. Darwin also hinted that the proteins must be able to undergo evolutionary cycles, generating more complex changes, which today is described as away from equilibrium chemical systems.
So who is Atheism Repellant?
No clue. Don't care.
I know we have an Otangelo Repellent, but
No, this person seems a little bit more intelligent.
Central theme of both of these texts consider cells as biological factories. Oh, they're outstanding factories. Oh my.
We're still playing the same quote mining
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Find a paper that you think says something it agrees with you.
Maybe somebody with mod privileges could post the URL to that Daniel J. Nicholson article. Is the cell really a machine? That might provide some good reading.
I'm giving Atheism Repellant a rent so that he can post actual links instead of just this bullshit, right?
Okay.
So what do you think? And we'll see if he behaves. We don't know who he is, but you're now a mod, Atheism Repellant. Please post links. Don't post, some people can quickly go out and check. That would be fair and intellectually honest. Okay.
Shall I read? This brings us.
Yeah.
Whoop, do you want to read it? Okay. This brings us. I'll read it. This brings us to a conundrum known as the water problem. Proteins and other key polymers of life, RNA and DNA, must function in an aqueous medium, but in the absence of continuous synthesis, undergo hydrolytic decomposition at varying rates depending on temperature and pH. In life today, polymers are continuously synthesized and repaired by enzyme catalyzed condensation reactions driven by ATP as an energy source. However, there were no enzymes or ATP available on the prebiotic Earth. So how could the first polymers form? It has long been understood that condensation reactions can occur if monomers undergo dehydration at elevated temperature. However, a single cycle might lead to a few oligomers, but these would begin to undergo hydrolysis upon rehydration. We propose that not just a single cycle, but instead continuous wet-dry cycles would allow polymers to exist in an already static, a solid, and the total opposite, in a steady state and grow more complex. Here, I'm gonna do this full screen. That might help. Okay, there we go. Long been I lost my place. Did you just highlight it?
I did.
Okay, instead, exist in a steady state and grow more complex as solutes in a prebiotic warm little pond. As long as the rate of synthesis exceeds the rate of hydrolysis, multiple cycles operating in conjunction with a kinetic trap will inevitably produce an accumulation of polymers. In other words, a kinetic trap emerges in a reaction or a series of linked reactions if the rate of synthesis exceeds the rate of a back reaction. All life on Earth incorporates a kinetic trap because the rate of synthesis of biopolymers by condensation reactions exceeds the rate of their hydrolysis.
Okay.
Anybody want to take up some slack here?
Immutable. One positive.
Immutable. Where are we?
We may as well read this. We only have, I think, one half page, and then a little bit of a column.
Okay,
so, one possible site for the emergency.
Yeah, I got it. Jesus, can I talk? Oh.
Well, I'm helping you out. I'm helping you.
I appreciate you trying to help me, you old ass man.
I like to help the youngsters because they're not.
Just shut up. Just shut up. One possible site for the emergence of a kinetic trap would be mineral surfaces where fluctuating water levels cause cycles of wetting and drying that localize concentrated dry solutes. Fast wet-dry cycles happening in seconds to minutes occur when geysers splash water on surrounding hot rocks. Medium duration cycles measured in minutes to hours occur with the rise and fall of pool levels caused by regularly fluctuating hot springs, and slower cycles measuring in hours to days be associated with complete evaporation of smaller pools, followed by refilling during precipitation. Volcanoes emerging through a global ocean would be the original landmasses on the Hadean Earth. Van Kranendonk, 2010. Bada and Karanja, 2018, analogous to Hawaii and Iceland today. If we were to travel to 4 billion years back in time to visit these volcanic landscapes on the Hadean Earth, Figure 2, we would see abundant hydrothermal fields with multiple hot spring systems replenished by precipitation evaporating from the surrounding ocean. The distilled freshwater would prelocate into hot rocks and then circulate back to the surface as springs and geysers.
Okay, percolated. That's really important.
Yeah. Hydrothermal fields provide sources of heat and chemical energy to drive polymerization reactions in the films of concentrated organic solutes that form on mineral surfaces during repeated cycles of wetting and drying. Inset A. Inset B shows an example of such a pole on Mount Mutnovsky, an active volcano in Kamchatka, Russia. Kompachino et al. 2015. The recent discovery of a 3.5 billion year old hot spring setting on a volcanic plateau that formed in the absence of direct plate tectonic involvement is a good analog of direct plate tectonic involvement. Is a good analogy for an early Earth volcanic landscape emerging from a global ocean just 500 million years after the approximate time frame we are proposing for life's origins. Pierce et al. 2018, von Krokendock et al. 2020.
You probably don't have to read the references, but
in summary, the primary polymers of life today, proteins and nucleic acids, are synthesized energetically by condensation reactions. The chemical energy of ATP is used to remove the equivalent of water molecules from the amine and carboxyl groups on amino acids to form peptide bonds, or the phosphate and ribose hydroxyl groups on nucleotides to form ester bonds. A certain degree of caution should be exercised when envisaging prebiotic reactions of condensation reactions driving polymerization reactions. For instance, Krishnamurthy wrote, "Coincidentally, it turns out that this ester to amide mechanism is part of extant biology, with more evolved molecules, as exemplified by A, the peptidyl transfer reaction within the confines of the ribosome, and B, the thioester amide exchange equivalent in the non-ribosomal peptide synthesis pathway. Whether this is a preservation of a primordial reaction mechanism or a case of convergence due to chemical contingency is still an open-ended debate."
Okay, before you get to that, we want to show this illustration here.
Wonderful picture.
Ain't that beautiful?
Huh? Yeah. This is the little pool that he had in his video, I believe. This is the one that he went up to and dumped the vial into.
That looks exceptionally realistic, too.
It is real. He actually did this. He actually dumped, this is where he actually dumped the chemicals in, I think. This little pool. It had a picture of him walking up, and then they went and measured all of these around the edges. There was this white foam, and they found it was basically they had bubbles and cells, protocells.
Huh.
And then he decided to go back to the lab and simulate that in the laboratory. They went into it further. So I think, that's all in the video. So they're showing a real volcano, I believe.
Yeah, that's the
artist's conception of a geyser driven. But then inset A shows a ring of dried solutes on the middle surfaces at the edges of a fluctuating pool. But I'm pretty sure that is the same pool that I saw in the video where he walked up there and dumped a little vial in it. So
could be.
Yeah, the one on the right, I think, is what he's wanting to illustrate that with.
Yeah.
Yep. So as noted earlier,
I can do it. I can still go if you want to.
Yeah, go.
As noted earlier, heating dry amino acids at elevated temperatures were among the first and most obvious energy sources to be tested as a way to drive polymerization. Over ensuing years, dry heat was abandoned because the yields were minimal and products were too short to be able to fold into catalytically active structures such as ribozymes. Furthermore, the bonds formed were often not related to the kinds of bonds used in biology, and there was a concern that intractable tars and asphalts were the most likely products. Therefore, researchers went on to explore condensing agents such as mononucleotides and mineral surfaces as a way to generate longer polymers. We do not intend to exclude other versions of activated polymerization or possible involvement of condensing agents, but it seems appropriate to focus first on polymerization that does not require activated monomers or condensing agents. Wet-dry cycles in freshwater would be abundant in the prebiotic environment as long as volcanic land masses had emerged from the global ocean, and a surprising amount of chemical energy is introduced by concentrating potential reactants in dilute solutions, as they evaporate to form dry films on mineral surfaces. Furthermore, wet-dry cycles pump mixtures of reactants towards ever-increasing complexity as products accumulate in kinetic traps. Such cycles have the additional advantage that if amphiphilic compounds are present in the mixture of reactants, encapsulation of polymers in membranous compartments occurs as the system goes through cycles of hydration and dehydration. We conclude that hot springs and fluctuating freshwater pools are plausible candidates for prebiotic sites supporting the assembly of protocells, defined as encapsulated systems of random polymers forming in numerous pools over many millions of years. As described in the next section, protocell populations can be exposed to a variety of environmental stresses. Most protocells are likely to be unstable, and their components will be dispersed. But a few will have properties that enhance their robustness. These will be selected in a process representing the first step in a pre-Darwinian version of evolution.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see. It was suggested that rock cavities, or mineral gels, could concentrate solutes and serve as compartments to counteract the dispersive environment of vent fluid flow. In earlier publications, we and others have compared freshwater and seawater environments, and comment further in this section.
Okay.
Cycling freshwater pools as an optimal environment for the assembly and selection of protocells on an evolutionary pathway to life. The hypothesis we are presenting here has a number of advantages in common with other proposals and also has some novel and possibly essential additional features. A key strength is the empirical foundation and weight of evidence that emerged over the past decade. Amphiphilic compounds are present in carbonaceous meteorites and can assemble into membranous vesicles. Amphiphiles are also synthesized by photochemical reactions and are products of Fischer-Tropsch type reactions that may occur in volcanic geochemistry. The results suggest that membranous compartments were available in the prebiotic environment and could accumulate in subaerial pools. Recent investigations of a 3.5 billion year old anoxic hot spring setting from the Pilbara Craton in Western Australia shows that its hydrothermal veins and compositionally varied pools and springs had the capacity to mobilize and concentrate many of the elements required for prebiotic chemistry, including carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur,
boron.
What's B? Boron, zinc. Is that magnesium?
Yeah.
And potassium and others. Now, this is in Western Australia. So, Ian, if you're there, you need to go to that location and show us some pictures.
Yes.
We need to see this.
Yes.
We need to see this. We want you to be our reporter in the field.
Western Australia. I think he has to
take your baby there and have it baptized in that area.
3,000 miles. Yeah, you could baptize Victoria in a hot spring.
Yeah, definitely. A hot spring. Hot spring baptisms are the best.
I think that he'd probably get reported for that.
He might. I don't know.
I mean, do it during a cold season, okay? We obviously don't want to scald the baby.
Right. We just want pictures of the place.
Yeah.
But anyway, as described earlier, biological polymers such as oligonucleotides and oligopeptides are products of condensation reactions and can be synthesized when their solutions are exposed to multiple wet-dry cycles in acidic fresh water. Lots of references. Mineral surfaces and peptides may play roles such as non-enzymatic polymerization in early steps in life's origins and bear further investigation. If lipids are present during a wet-dry cycle, polymers are encapsulated to form protocells. Other forms of a self-assembly may support key processes in prebiotic chemistry, such as the emergence of homochirality or the purification of polymers. The results are not only confined to laboratory conditions, but have also been demonstrated in hot spring analogs of the early Earth.
Okay, we have gone 1 hour and we crossed over into section 2.
Man, this is great.
We dare go into section 3.
Accidentally, we're not. We're stopping here. I'm
Stopping here.
gonna open it up to people out there for now.
Well, why don't we end the stream and then do an open stream?
Why don't we end the stream?
Because this is a paper trails review. This is not an open hangout.
Okay.
I think that's a good point, because we want these paper reviews to be a little bit shorter and easier to digest. This is actually text that people can review themselves.
Yeah, this paper is linked in the description for anybody who wants to go out and get the paper.
And it is open access, so you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, and if we drill a little further into these to get some of the other papers, I'll backlink them into the description. There's a whole lot of papers to download here. I think this particular one has about 300 references. This paper altogether.
This has a lot of references, and also we might want to link an Amazon link to the book "Assembling Life" by David Deamer, because he recounts a lot of this in his book.
Yep,
"Assembling Life" is the name of it.
I will link that in the description so that people can go buy that book. Okay.
Yeah,
It's not really great for audiobook, because it has so many tables that the whoever narrates it just reads the tables, and it's lists of molecules and elements and stuff. But that's the biggest weakness of the audio version of the book. But yeah, it's definitely worth getting.
Okay, so let's close this stream, and Immutable, can you start a new live stream while I'm
Oh God, here we go.
working on the description?
Maybe, I suppose.
Okay, so there'll be a live stream starting in about 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how skilled Immutable is. It could be a half an hour. I don't know, but we'll see. Hopefully.
Wow, just always got to throw shade at me.
Always take my shots. Okay, so we're going to end this broadcast, and we'll take it up probably next week with section 2, or maybe sooner. Ending. Goodbye, cruel world.